Hi everyone, this is Rick. I've been working on my Immacudryer and I will have prototypes out at a discounted price probably tomorrow or very soon. I've been working on it quite a bit, went through a lot of material, did a lot of studies. I think some of you may know that I tried making a dryer for comic books that kept them from shrinking, but the book grew. Well, I didn't want that to happen either. And it sort of looks like this is one part of the Immacudryer, and I'll have a little part of this showing how it's used in some of the prototypes later. And by the way, the one that I show is not one that I'm selling. They're much better. They're a little bit bigger. They have more clamping sections or more fastening sections. But the idea is that I didn't want it to shrink or grow. And I've been told by many people that professional conservators don't do it the way I do it, but wasn't given information on how they do it. So that remains a mystery. But I tried different things, and I think I've got something that worked for me. I happen to have several copies of the same old Spooky Tales book from 1973. That was great for me to use. I just got it wet for not very long, honestly, just till the pages were sinking in water when they were set in there. They weren't floating anymore. So it was probably around 2-3 minutes, and then I'd dry the book. And initially, the book was 35 millimeters or 35 centimeters wide, just after soaking, which matched what it was when it was new, incidentally. This is the whole book. This is planar, the entire thing. So the first time I used the clamp, the dryer the same way I did before with 4 clamps, and I'm finding that the clamps are really what's making the book grow. It ended up being, I'll have a picture here, I think it was about 35.6 or 7 millimeters. It grew a lot. So I thought, okay, well, that's not great. So I tried some different approaches. I've used little screw legs that I needed the book to not be sitting on a flat surface so the air could leave both sides at once, the drying could happen. And that worked better, a lot better. So you can see that it went from 35.6 to, let's see, what did I have here? I had 35.4 millimeters, which was better. And remember, that's split between 2 halves. So you get like half of that on either side. So that's better, but it's still longer. Didn't want that. So I eventually got rid of the clamps altogether and just use these faster legs that I'll show you in a little bit. That worked a lot better. And I also found that, once it's dry to the touch, which ends up being around between 2 and 3 hours, depending on your ambient temperature and humidity, then you just take it out, let it rest, and it will ended up being at the very end about almost the same size. It was slightly smaller, but it was maybe a millimeter, maybe half a millimeter. So between 2 sides, we're talking 1/4 to half a millimeter smaller. So that, to me, that worked. That was better than shrinking and better than growing. And I'm just burning through copies of this book. So, and I also found that you can use the same piece of paper. If it shrinks too much, you can put it back in. It will grow. It will shrink. You can go back and forth at least twice, maybe I think 3 times on one case. The same book will shrink or grow. So that was nice to see. And what about the other way? What about the vertical direction? I have a few pictures here that show it didn't. No matter how many things I did to it, for reasons unknown to me, it would not grow vertically. So that was kind of interesting. I also wanted to show a few photos of when some of the books were dirtier than others, and foam was pretty dirty, and I didn't spend a lot of time cleaning it. You can see that the actual tanning or the dirt would actually go to the actual holes because that's where it was migrating to when it evaporated. And you can see this pattern in there, so it wasn't cleaned good enough. So I'll show a few photos of that. Here, photo 1 and photo 2. And then I'll move on to showing you what this contraption looks like now. Here's what they look like now. There's a different hole pattern. There's slightly bigger holes and they're a little bit closer together. The boards are keyed on this side with a semicircle and on this side with a square, so you can get them lined up perfectly so that the holes are completely perfectly lined up. No matter what you do, you keep it there. And now they have places for 6 of the standoff screw down parts so that we don't use the clamps at all. And that's going to be the current use case for the Immacudryer. That's what it looks like now. And of course, you'll peel this paper off. I guess you don't have to, but you will before you start using it. And they'll have some weird defects in the first few prototypes. Like get the laser tuned and things, but they all work the same exact way, and they'll be available now. So the kit looks something like this, only now there will be 6 standoffs instead of 4. And you'll get 2 pieces of 11 by 17 remade paper that you'll have to cut the size yourself. And you'll receive 2 boards that are approximately, I think, 15.5 inches by 11.5 inches each. So when you receive it, you'll have to peel this protective paper off before you use it. I guess you could use it in place, but you probably want to peel it off. It'll look like this as you move it. It comes off pretty easily. It comes off easier if it's warm, just as a pro tip. Before I show you how to assemble it, it looks kind of like this assembled without a book in it, so that you know what you're heading for. It's got these standoffs that screw down and keep the book clamped. There are 6 in the final prototype, and this one's frost on the bottom and transparent on the top. All right, so what we do first is you have to cut this to your own size, but I'm going to put the remade paper here, and then I take a cover and I lay it on the remade paper here, like this in this case, and it will be, it's okay if it's not exactly the same size, or if it's a little bigger or a little smaller, because it just keeps it from sticking to the plastic. Let me put another piece on top here, like this, and kind of flatten it out a little. Then we will put this top piece on. Then we will place the fasteners in the holes, and then we will put a little gasket here and screw the bottom on. See how long it takes. All right, this is the 2-hour mark here. So we have, and it is dry. Yeah, it's now, in 2 hours, it is now dry to the touch. So that is the product right now as it stands. There are going to be a few coming out with small, subtle defects as I get the laser tuned to cutting it just right and get the whole pattern figured out. But they all work well. I mean, I threw out several that I wouldn't sell. All the prototypes work the same way. They'll function properly. I'm working out the logo, the rounding the corners, things like that. So in the meantime, you can buy them at a much lower price, and they'll be available for later. So if it interests you, head over to immaculatecomics.com and pick one up. I'll allow some in back order because I know I'm going to make a few more. But if you like them, check it out. All right, take care. See ya. Bye-bye.